Mr. Richard worked at a petrol filling station in the city. In the same city lived Madame Mary, a wealthy woman known for her influence and connections. Whenever there was fuel scarcity, Madame Mary would go to Mr. Richard for help, and he always made sure she got fuel. Over time, this small favor turned into a friendship. One day, Madame Mary called Mr. Richard and asked about his life plans. He told her he was saving money to travel to Europe. Without hesitation, she offered to help him. She even advised him to resign from his job at the petrol station. Trusting her, Richard handed in his resignation letter. From that day, he started visiting Madame Mary's house often. She treated him like a younger brother and even gave him one of her cars to use while his travel documents were being processed. Life was looking bright for Richard, but one afternoon, as he drove her car, the police stopped him and arrested him on the spot. At the station, he learned that his former employers had accused him of stealing company money to buy a car. Madame Mary rushed to the station, presented proof that the car was hers, and secured his release. A week later, Madame Mary handed Richard his visa. Overjoyed, he jumped with excitement. She told him they would be traveling together the following Monday. On the day of departure, a driver took them to the airport. They checked in, boarded the plane, and settled in their seats. But just before takeoff, Madame Mary complained of a sudden stomach upset. She told Richard she couldn't continue the trip and that her brother would pick him up when he landed. She stepped off the plane, leaving Richard to travel alone. Upon arrival in Europe, Madame Mary's brother welcomed him. Richard was thrilled. His dream had finally come true. He called Madame Mary to check on her health, and she assured him she was fine. He began exploring the city and looking for work. Then came the unexpected call. Madame Mary wanted him to return home. Richard was devastated but had no choice. He boarded the next flight back, his heart heavy with disappointment. When he arrived, Madame Mary surprised him with a welcome party. Later that night, she gave him a large sum of money. Shocked, Richard listened as she made him swear an oath of loyalty. Only then did she reveal the truth. She was a drug dealer, and he had unknowingly carried drugs in his luggage on his trip. The money was his share. From that moment, Richard became part of her operation, transporting drugs across states and countries. The business made him rich. He drove luxury cars and dated many women. One day, Madame Mary called with news of a final massive shipment before her retirement. Richard agreed, but greed overtook him. Upon landing abroad, instead of delivering the drugs to the arranged contacts, he hid them and checked into a hotel, planning to sell them himself. But word of his betrayal reached the network. The authorities were tipped off. As police surrounded the hotel, Richard tried to flee but was arrested. Meanwhile, Madame Mary, hearing of his arrest, rushed to see her herbalist for help. On the way, she had a terrible accident and died instantly. In custody, Richard was pressured to name his associates. As he was about to speak, he began coughing violently, vomiting blood, and died on the spot. The empire they had built on lies, greed, and crime crumbled in an instant.